the numbers and the data that comes out of best practices sort of has a trickle down effect to the rest of the industry. It's them saying, hey, these are the folks that are doing the best out of everybody else from a financial growth, M&A, operational standpoint.
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Mom, how you doing today?
I'm having a good day, Lindsay. How's your day going?
I'm having a good one. We are headed up to Ohio for 4th of July this week, so we're going to escape the heat. It's going to be, actually, I don't even know that it's that much colder up in Ohio than it is here in South Carolina. So I'm telling myself I'm going to escape the heat, but who knows? It could be even hotter up there.
Yeah, someone was asking me like what we've got going, and I'm like, you just stay in your house down here. You go to the beach, you go to your own pool, you stay in your house. You do not go to a restaurant. This is not the week to be going to restaurants. This is not the week to explore the island or go to freaking anywhere. You definitely don't cross the bridge. That's for sure. So, but I'm looking forward to it. It's a short week. Happy to be here. We've had great weather, and I think the boat's going to get a little use. So, not a bad life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm super excited today. I get to have one of my great friends in this industry, and I get to congratulate him on a super big accomplishment. So Bradley Flowers is joining us of Portal Insurance. Bradley, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you guys? And you don't breathe the air in the South during the summer. You chew it.
That's true. It's very true.
It's like going for a walk. Going for a walk, you're like swimming instead of walking. It's kind of gross.
I have one of those wives that anytime we go to a restaurant wants to sit outside.
Oh, she and Kevin would get along
worst.
Great. And I'm like, dude, it's not meant to be sat outside right now. Like, we want to enjoy our life, right? Yeah. The other thing in the South or at the beach or whatever, there's a lot of things in the news right now, Bradley, about shark bites and shark attacks near us. And it's so funny. People are like all up in arms around it. And I'm thinking to myself, you do realize they live there. It's like if they would say, I can't believe it, we were on land and we saw people, like, hello, where else are they supposed to be, right?
Did you know that more people are killed by hippos every year in the United States than sharks?
Hippos? I did not know that.
Where in the U.S. do they have hippos?
I guess zoos. I don't know. But that's a stat I saw one time. Maybe it's in the world.
It might be in the world.
Because I don't think we have hippos in the U.S., but I'm going to Google that and text you about it later.
It's hippo insurance. Don't you know their employees kill people? Yeah, that's an actual stat. And then the other one is more people die on ferries than on planes. Which I don't have to tell Carey Wallace that. She's on a plane more than anybody. How close are you to Million Miler Club? You got to be pretty close.
I'm pretty up there. Yeah, I haven't hit it yet. When I first started traveling, I wasn't as smart about it. I wanted to get there quickly, and I would fly anywhere. And then I quickly realized
you don't have to sign up for the rewards and all that. Yeah. I did the exact same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is ridiculous. So now I picked a place, and I'm getting there, but it's I don't know that that's a badge of honor. I think that that's a crazy part. Like, I don't try and talk about that, but yeah. Anyway, well, let's talk about you.
There's too many people that think it's a badge of honor when I'm really like, man, like that sounds terrible.
Yeah, I kind of want to minimize the fact that I'm constantly on, an airplane. And actually, the part that I hate about travel is the inconsistency. And then the next day when you're supposed to be there and you're still traveling, you've got to reschedule everything, and it gives me anxiety. So I try really hard. Yeah.
Let's just go in fractional on a jet. I mean,
let's do it.
That's what I say all the time. She doesn't like it when I say it. Apparently she's in with you though.
I played a joke on her one time, Lindsay. So we acquired an agency 2 years ago that was on the other side of the bay from us, but like as the crow flies was actually not that far. And it was an hour and 5 minute one-way drive. And so we get on this call and I'm like, real serious. I'm like, Carey, it's an hour and 5 minutes. It's 2 hours and 10 minutes. And this is when I was going over there pretty much every day. And I was like, it would be a 6-minute flight and the airport is across the street, literally from both offices. I think I want to buy a plane. And there was about a 30-second pause, and she says, "Who's going to fly it?" And I was like, "I'm just messing with you." And she was like, "You understand I have other clients who actually do this." I'm like,
No,
I
"That's why I'm
do.
working with you. I
100%.
want to get to that point."
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
a
I
hundred
do.
percent.
So let's talk about
I,
something really cool that happened in your life, Bradley. I might be the first one, at least publicly, to congratulate you for becoming a best practices agency.
I thought you were going to say that we finally potty trained our 3-year-old. That was the bigger accomplishment last week. No, yeah, kind of. It was kind of a cool deal. So I really humbled to be designated that, and couldn't have done it without agency focus and Carey Wallace for sure. Not to make this a commercial, but that is the
Yeah.
cold hearted truth, stone cold truth.
Well, tell me, Bradley, though, like you've been in business for the people who are listening that might not follow you. Maybe they don't listen to the Insurance Guys podcast. I have no idea who the hell that person would be. But let's just say there's someone out there. How long have you had your agency and why now? Like, why did you even decide to go through the work? Because there is some work involved in becoming a best practices agency.
It's
Tell
a
me how that
lot of
worked.
work. It's
Yeah.
a lot of work for those of you listening to this, thinking that this is one of those mini awards out there that you just have to simply pay $350 and submit your information. That is not the case with this, and I don't think there was any like monetary
No.
side of this, because there's a lot of BS out there. And
Yeah.
one thing, there's a couple things that attracted me to applying. Number one, more like philosophical. When we started Portal, our grander purpose as a team was to effectively change the way that insurance agencies operated in the future, especially independent insurance agencies, because so many are living in the past. And some of that's rightfully so. I mean, insurance is it's an old business, you know. Um, we wanted to redefine how insurance agencies operate, and or at least be a trendsetter in that regard. So from like a philosophical standpoint, that was, I feel like applying and becoming a best practices agency is part of that. I mean, it would be really hard to say, "Oh yeah, we're changing the way people operate," and not be a best practices agency. Um, but then too, you know, it's an award that, um, or designation that has nothing to do with how long you studied. It has nothing to do with how much money you paid them. It has nothing to do with your influence in the industry or anything like that. It's based on real hard data, actually proven
Yep.
results, and you
Yep.
can't fake it. And you have to really know your stuff too when you are submitting. I mean, you're talking about, it probably took me 3 to 4 weeks to send in
Mhm.
all the info. I gave up at least 3 times and had 2 calls with Carey during that time frame. So it was a lot. So
Yeah.
that was really it. And I mean, personally, like, I'm not saying this to my own horror. I consider it, um, to be one of the highest honors, if not the highest honor in the independent space, because of the way that they, you know, the metrics they go by, and also like the metrics that come out of the numbers and the data that comes out of best practices sort of has a trickle down effect to the rest of the industry. It's them saying, "Hey, these
Yep.
are the folks that are doing the best out of everybody else from a financial growth, M&A, operational standpoint, and this is the mark." You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So that was really
Yeah.
it.
So you're in
And
year
I didn't
what?
even know what it was 2 years ago.
Yeah,
So
so let's
it's
talk
just,
about that. You're in year what of Portal? How old is Portal today?
um, 6 years old,
So
going on
he's so
7.
Portal is 6 years old. And so, you first year your head's down, you're trying to figure out, actually first 3 years probably your head's down, you're really paying attention to something. When would you tell other agents, like, you should probably pick your head up and look around and think about things like this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think. and actually, you just reminded me of a third reason I wanted to do it. But I think that I think that you've got to have your financial house in order from
Yeah.
a P&L standpoint. You are either a professional yourself and have educated yourself on how to run a clean business from a financial standpoint, or are working with someone who's helping you do that. And that's when I think you should do it. Um, I think if you are not at that point, you won't even make it through the application process before you give up. I
Yeah.
would have. I would have
Yeah.
given up. But there's stuff in there that you're just not going to have if you're
Well, you
not
don't
doing that.
understand it. Like the reality is you won't
Yeah.
know how to answer it,
Hmm.
unfortunately. And if you don't know how to answer it, you won't be able
Yeah.
to answer it in a way that is accurately depicting your agency. So
Hmm.
unfortunately, that is a stumbling block. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other side of that is really the main reason that I would apply for any kind of award or designation or anything like that. Your customers, if you put a best practices logo on your door, your customers aren't going to give a crap or know what that is.
Right.
Where it really matters is with the carriers.
Yeah.
If you that's the only reason you see me touting any kind of thing that we won or anything like that, it's to look like a good investment from the carrier side. And we all have those carriers. We all know the 8 or 10 carriers in the industry that are held at a very high level amongst agents. If you look at all of the best practices agencies in the country, 99% of them are going to have all of those carriers.
Mhm.
So I think in the carrier's eyes, it puts you at a little bit of a step above your, okay, they know, okay, not only is this not only is this agency growing, but they actually have their stuff together from a financial standpoint on the back end, which should matter to carriers. And I know Carrie can vouch for this, and I can too. Going through like M&A stuff, there's a lot of people that don't have their stuff together at all. I
Yeah.
mean, people
Yeah.
asking for 5 times revenue, and I'm like, okay, send me the last 12 months P&L. They're like, oh, there's no chance I have that. I'm like, okay, you know,
Well, that's
like,
good
all
because we
right,
don't know what number you're asking for. Then, if you don't know your revenue, I guess we can make it up, right? That's pretty
yeah. Or,
funny.
or like we had one guy, Lindsay, that accidentally counted his revenue twice.
Yeah.
Uh,
We
So
talk
he
about
had
that
it
story.
was like this, and it's double, and I'm like, bro, and I had to explain to the seller
Yeah.
that his revenue was half of what it was.
yeah, it was a
I
terrible
was the
day.
one that told him
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was not good.
It was a
Hard
terrible
position to
day
be
when
in.
Bradley's like, "Hey, well, this cash flow." I'm like, "No, because his statement's wrong. Like, it's a
Well,
hundred
and
percent wrong." Yeah.
part of me thought like, okay, did he do this on purpose to
Yeah.
see if I would catch it? That would be a good trick to play somebody if you were trying to figure out if they were like worth their salt. Like,
Yeah.
but
No
yeah,
doubt.
so yeah, it was a cool thing, and we went through the application process. I wasn't 100% sure if we would get it because there were some areas that I knew we would be off in, but and then one thing that's really cool is once you've achieved it, and they only give it to about 300 agencies out of the ones that apply, and there's 30,000 independent agencies in the country, give or take. So you're in the top 1% in that regard. Um, the They give you a report. I think I sent mine to you, Carrie, where it basically
Yeah.
shows where you stack up against everybody else, what you're really good in, what you're bad in, and that sort of thing. So yeah, it was really humbling, and um, we are we're excited. And another thing that made me kind of excited about it is my team didn't know what best practice was, but I sent an email out to them letting them know we got that designation. And I think one of the things you try to do, especially if you're like us, where we're still, I mean, we're 7 years old, so we're still, compared to an agency that's 50 years old, we're still a startup. We're new. We're doing things differently. Um, it There's definitely some uncertainty with some of our people when they come to work here. They're like they may look at it as taking a chance, and compensation
Yeah.
wise, we're not on the lowest end of the compensation scale, but we're not the highest. And we regularly tell our people, hey, like, you can go somewhere else and make more money, but you're not going to have these benefits that we provide. And so it was a nice check mark, green flag to them of like, hey, you are at somewhere special, and that's not just us saying that, it's the rest of the industry. But one of the things that humbled me a little bit was once I sent the email out letting them know that, um, they kind of got it and were excited about it. So that was fun. Like, you guys can go to a big eye meeting or a networking event and be proud. And when
Yeah.
you're talking to an agency that's 80 years old, and oh, by the way, there's only one, at least last year, there's only one other best practices agency in this area. And that agency is over 100 years old. So you can tell them, like, hey, we're not, this isn't podcast guy. Oh, it's cute. He's building an agency. Like, we're actually doing things the right way.
Yeah. Did you, and this is my unfamiliarity with the best practices, but you have to get nominated by someone,
You do.
right?
You do.
So do you
You
know
do.
who nominated you for it?
I do. I
You
do.
do? And was that like a huge honor to that person? Did they reach out to you and tell you that they nominated you, or how did you find out that you were nominated?
So normally, I think your state big I normally nominates you.
Okay.
Um, I have some relationships at the Alabama Big I, um, not like what you would think. I'm trying to be
Hmm.
political here, um, politically correct. So I actually got nominated by Albie Knight,
Oh,
who
nice.
I'm actually a member of the North Carolina Big I as well.
Yeah.
That's a long story, but I'm actually a member, and so I consider Albie to be one of the best, if not the best,
Yep.
leaders of a state association. You're you bring Albie Knight's name up to anybody in the industry, you're never going to get anybody to say anything negatively, and if they do, it's because they're jealous of how good of a job he does. I'll
Or
just
they've
say
not
that
met
out
him.
there.
Like
Or
maybe
they've not
maybe
met
they've
him.
just not met him, right?
Yeah, that's the case of most of the people that hate me. And so to be nominated by him was pretty sweet. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that is
yeah,
awesome.
awesome.
and I think you could, if you're listening to this and you don't have a relationship with your big eye, I think you can just reach out to him and ask.
I think you
But
can. Yeah.
but yeah, so and that's the other piece of it is you actually have to have someone else, and there's specific like categories that there's it's very limited who can nominate people, and so I mean, to me that's an honor in and of itself, but it's that person vouching for you.
So
Right.
for those people who may not, just like your team, who don't know what best practices is, from my perspective, it is the place where you go to look for the benchmarks to say, how am I doing? If you
Mhm.
are, I mean, listen, there's 39,000 independent insurance agencies in the country, according to the Agency Universe study. So there's
How many was that?
39,000, 30,
39.
yeah, 39,000 different ways to do this. Like nobody gives you an
Yeah,
instruction manual and says this is how you run an independent insurance
and that's
agency.
the problem. That's
Right.
why you go in these Facebook groups and there's so much bad advice because
Right.
everybody's figured out as they go, which is the beautiful thing about this side of the industry, but it's also the worst thing.
Right. So this is a place you could go, and it's based on size that you can
Hmm.
go and say, what's the standard for growth? What's the standard for profit? What's the standard for staffing? How many producers should I have? How many CSRs should I have? How should I allocate my resources from a financial standpoint? But the reality is that's moving and shifting. So what I love about this, and I love about it because I have several clients who are best practices agencies. Some have been that for many years. Some they haven't ever applied, and now they're becoming a best practices agency. But what I love is it's by size, but it's also you can hit those categories in growth and profitability a lot of different ways. You could be focused, you could be tech forward.
Yeah.
It's going to get harder to not be those things and still maintain that profitability and growth, but it has such a wide variety of agencies that have been able to achieve this, which allows you to find the thing in there where you might need to work and help continue to grow your agency. Or you might be able to say, check, 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 I am the
Yeah.
leader in this space. But what is the next size agency doing? Like, that's a cool
Yeah.
Mm.
part of this report,
And they
right?
band it based on your revenue. So this isn't something that if you are super small,
That's right.
you can't do. You know what I mean? And in fact, I was looking at last year's winners, And there was one guy who would, so they designate in each revenue band, I think there's 4 or 5, they designate a top agency.
Yep.
And there was a guy, I think it was the smallest category, and he was out of Washington State. I'm actually going to reach out to him to come on the podcast because it was the smallest category, but he was the best in that category. And I was like, I bet this dude is on top of his stuff. Like, to me,
Yeah.
as someone who talks to a lot of agencies, sees a lot of agencies, sees the warts, somebody who's running a really, really, really efficient and financially sound small agency is way more impressive to me than someone running
Agreed.
a huge agency really efficiently, because it's really easy to accomplish a lot of stuff when you've got a lot of money coming in. When you
It's
don't have
true.
money and resources and you're
Yeah.
still able to run it like this, I'm like, I would bet on that person. And to me, if I'm acquiring an agency, that agency is more valuable to me than someone who's maybe a little bit bigger but not
Yeah.
financially sound, you know.
Yeah. Very cool.
But yeah, I'll tell you a story. And already told Carrie the story once, but so I was in Insurance Soup the other day, and somebody said, "Hey, I think the question was, I want to know if I'm underpaying, overpaying my team, where I'm at on payroll." And I said, simple, go to the best practices guide online. I think it's like $5 to buy it. You might can find a free version out there too, and find your revenue category, look at what the average agency in that revenue category is spending on payroll as a percentage of revenue, and then you'll know if you're low or high. And the response I got was, "What's the best practices guide?" And so a lot of people,
Yeah.
and part of me like applying for this and hoping that we get it was to raise awareness for it, because it is really a good thing. And there's a lot of folks out there that are just flying by their seat of the pants, like I was doing when I started, and there's no structure or guide to go by. And I think that's one of the huge benefits to the captive side of the industry that we don't talk about, is that there is a guide. There
Hmm.
is a structure and a way of doing things that you don't necessarily get on the independent side. That's why I think sometimes the most dangerous agencies are the ones that have just never been anything but independent, you know.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, when I started, before we worked with Carrie, like I would go to hire somebody and it would just be like, what feels good? Like,
Yeah.
how much can I afford to pay?
Pick it out of
And
the
that's,
wind.
yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, we're profiting, you know, 5 grand a month. I need to hire somebody, so I'm going to pay them three, and
Yeah.
it's just whatever. And there's no like structure about it. And
Yeah.
what ends up happening when you do that, as you grow and you hire more people, is you end up with people that are making all different types of compensation levels. And then what happens after that? They talk, and then you end up with a bigger,
100%.
and then you end up overpaying to make up,
Yeah.
to right your wrong. And so having this guide
Or
to go by.
Yeah, or Pat Bradley, you do all these things and it's fly by the seat of my pants. I mean, I hate to bring up soup again, but then you've got all these comp structures that when you go to sell or you go to acquire, and they're so vastly different, and it actually is a prohibitor for you to be able to sell because your buyer doesn't actually want to honor these comp structures, and they also don't want the fallout of your people expectations.
Yeah,
If they right size their comp, they're screwed. So knowing this and having the guide or talking to someone who actually can help guide you to do this is so crazy important in some of these decisions, because they're hard to undo when you get to
yeah.
the point, right?
If,
Yeah.
if you want to hear my horror story on this, I'm not going to go into it further. If you're listening to this, go back to the first episode I did with Carrie and Lindsay, and I told a story of how a crazy compensation structure at an agency we acquired almost cost us the deal. And the result of that is the owner had to write a big check to the employees when he sold out of the money I paid him. Otherwise, we wouldn't have bought it.
So for those of the people that are like, okay, I obviously need to find this study, you can go on the website, and it is actually $79.99 to get a
Oh, I was wrong.
copy
It's
of the
not
That's
five
best
five
practice.
dollars.
I don't
dollars.
want
I was
people to
wondering why
think
you
it's five.
smiled when I
Yeah,
said that.
I was like, let's give them the real information,
Well,
but
is
it's
that the
out there.
printed version? I think there's a digital version
It's an
that's not that
ebook. It's
expensive.
an ebook for
Oh, okay.
$79.99. Like it's a
Yeah.
fair amount of information, but and the
It's a
only other
lot.
thing
It's
I'll
worth
tell
it.
you,
It's worth it.
yeah,
It's not. This isn't. You're going to waste $79. It's worth it.
and we believe so much in the data that's out there, and we want people to be empowered by the information that is out there. And the only thing I'll tell you about this report that in my mind, there are 83% of independent agents are under 1.25 million in revenue, and their lowest category is 0 to 1.25 million. I will tell you, at Agency Focus, we actually have some benchmarks that break down that category because there's so many people in that category. If you're looking for benchmarks and you're in that category, you should reach out because we definitely have that information. But get informed. I'm so freaking excited for you, Bradley. I can't even begin to tell you because I know how hard you worked for it and how great of a shop you
Yeah.
run and the work you've done over the last 2 years to grow by acquisition. It's a huge feather in your cap, and I'm super pumped for you. I truly am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a braggadocious guy,
No.
but I think there's certain things that are okay to brag about when you
Yeah.
accomplish them. And I definitely think that this is one of them for sure.
Yeah.
And I definitely could not have done it without. I would have not done it without Carrie. There was one point because this form you fill out, like all the numbers, it's an interactive form, and so if you put something here and then you put something in another category, the people on the other side know that it doesn't make sense. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So you can't just guess. It's not you're not filling out a personal financial statement for a loan. Like this stuff has to
Yeah.
like add up, and it definitely would on the front end wouldn't have accomplished without Carrie getting our stuff together, and then two, actually submitting the info. I'm too of an impatient person to go through all of that by myself. So I understand. I messaged Josh Gurley, who's somebody else I think you helped get it.
Yeah.
I was like, I understand why so many agencies aren't best practices agency because even if you have your stuff together, submitting this info is not easy. And
Yeah.
if you don't have your stuff together, there's no way you could fake it. There's
Yeah.
zero chance you could fake it.
Well, we have several clients that you could tell when that deadline was coming because they're all like, "Hey, can you jump on a call and just make sure I'm reading this right? Can you please translate what they're asking?" So, anyway, I was happy to help, and I'm super pumped. If you had advice to anyone out there about this or how to use it if you get it, like any closing thoughts about if you get to this point or you're thinking about it, what would you tell them?
Well, I would hire agency focus, but
That's
but
not what I meant. Jesus.
outside of that, if you don't, I think it's super. There's too many agency owners out there who are doing their own books,
Yeah. Yeah.
which also means they're not doing them.
Right.
Yeah.
And I used to be one of those guys because I was super particular. I would run my P&L every day because I wanted to know to the day where we at. And there's it's too inexpensive to hire
Yeah.
a third party bookkeeper to do your books for you and make sure they're right. However, if you're hiring somebody who's never done independent agencies, and even if you're hiring somebody who's done independent agencies, I would have them talk to an expert
Yeah.
on exactly how to classify things. To me, that's the first step in getting your stuff together. It just makes things way easier in the long run. And you can be confident that stuff is done correctly because all you're doing is kicking that football down the road. Every business either sells or goes out of business.
That's right. That's right.
Any business, I mean, even if we're looking at the smallest companies in the world, or we're looking at like Google. I mean, technically Google sold; they went public. You're selling your company to the public, right?
Yep. Yep.
And if that's the end result, like having solid financials in place and working with experts really prevents one of those things and helps another. And it's the case with acquisitions in every facet of your business. If there's anything that you are kicking the can down the road on, or putting on the back burner, you are either what you're doing is you are defaulting that to the person that acquires you is going to have to do it, and
And reap the
um,
benefits of doing it. Like that's the
and
other
reap the
thing.
benefits of doing it, and you're costing yourself valuation dollars and
Absolutely.
or creating a headache for either you or the buyer on doing that. And, one example for us is the first agency we bought had a lot of operational issues and band-aids that they just kicked the can down the road, and we had to make those decisions. And so having a professional bookkeeper or working with a CFO that is doing that for you just greatly benefits you in the long run.
Yeah, it puts you in a position of power, puts you in a position where you can make decisions quicker. And
Yeah.
it allows these benchmarks to actually make sense to you. Because the reality
Mm-hmm.
is, if you go by the best practices report and your financials are not organized the same way, you're comparing apples and oranges and it means absolutely nothing. So that's the
Yeah.
other, or you don't know what organic growth is versus overall growth, or you don't understand what profit is or EBITDA is. Like if you don't know that, you can look at the numbers on the page but you can't make sense of them, and that's
But
the
just
big piece here.
it's just being able to forecast is
Yeah.
good too. Like I own a company with a partner that is it's insurance adjacent, but it's not an agency, and the revenue is very flat. Like we bring in the same amount every single month. The only variation we have in that is when we bring on a new customer. It's very easy to forecast that. In insurance, it's not. Like you can know that, okay, I'm going to renew $1 million in premium this month, but depending on when the customer pays, it might be, you might have got paid in May in 2024, but you might get paid in June in 2025. And one of the most valuable things that Carey's done for me is put together a cash flow analysis so that I know when certain money is supposed to come in. And that affects purchasing decisions for me and investment decisions and distributions and all that. Like, okay, yeah, I want to make this purchase for the agency, but I see that next month is a low month. So I'm going to wait till the following month because we might end up having a good month the next month, and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. And just being able to forecast that, and you're not guessing in that regard is very valuable. And the end result of that is you become a best practices agency or whatever. But regardless, I wouldn't do this just for that. I would do this for you because it just makes your life that much easier.
Agreed. Well, I'm super pumped for you. I could not have been happier when you FaceTimed me to tell me that you received the email, and
You know
that
what's
was a good
hilarious?
day.
I was on a call with Albie Knight, the person that nominated me,
Oh,
when the email came in, and as soon as I hit leave the meeting, I saw it and I was like, "Oh crap, that would have been perfect."
oh, that's so
That's so
cool. I hope you
funny.
called him back. I really hope you
I,
called him
I
back.
texted
Yeah.
him. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a busy guy. He doesn't he
He
doesn't need me to
is.
call him every day.
Well, I'm super glad that you came on and shared your experience. I think that it's a crime that people don't know that there's a resource like that out there and there's an opportunity for them. Yeah, I hope that the listeners get some great value out of it. And if anybody has any questions about it, I'm sure they know how to find you, Bradley.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank y'all.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.